Are you currently receiving PIP or universal credit payments? Or are you thinking about applying for these benefits in the future? What if I told you that there's a new welfare bill making its way through Parliament right now that could significantly impact your payments, and the changes coming could affect millions of people across the UK? The Universal Credit and Personal Independence Payment Bill 2024-25 is currently being debated in Parliament, and understanding what's happening could be crucial for your financial security. If you want to stay informed about benefit changes that could affect you and your family, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an important update about welfare reforms, benefit changes, and financial support that could impact your life. So what exactly is this new welfare bill, and why should you be concerned about it? The Universal Credit and Personal Independence Payment Bill 2024-25 is a piece of legislation that the government claims will help protect the most vulnerable while encouraging more people back into work. But here's the thing that many people don't realize: this bill contains some significant changes that could reduce the amount of money people receive from these crucial benefits, and it's not just affecting new claimants. The government has stated that the bill would implement changes that would reduce spending on health and disability benefits, which immediately raises questions about how this will impact the people who rely on these payments to survive. Let me break down what's actually happening with personal independence payment first, because this is where some of the most concerning changes are being proposed. Currently, if you're already receiving PIP, you might be breathing a sigh of relief because the government has said that all existing PIP recipients will remain on the current system. But here's what you need to know: the proposed changes to eligibility as part of this bill will apply to new claims from November 2026. This means that if you're currently thinking about applying for PIP, or if your circumstances might change in the future requiring you to make a new claim, you could be subject to these new, more restrictive rules. What makes this even more significant is the scale of the changes we're talking about. Since the pandemic, the number of PIP awards has more than doubled, going from 13,000 a month to 34,000 a month. That's roughly 1,000 people signing up to PIP every day, which the government says is equivalent to the size of Leicester signing up every year. The government argues that this rapid increase in claims is unsustainable and needs to be addressed, but critics are questioning whether making it harder to qualify for support is the right approach. Now let's talk about universal credit, because this is where the changes could affect both existing and new claimants in different ways. The government has announced that the universal credit standard allowance for new and existing claims will be increased, which sounds like good news on the surface. The single-person rate for those aged 25 and over will increase by £7 per week, from £91 per week in 2024-25 to £98 per week in 2026-27. This increase is described as being above inflation, which means it should help maintain the purchasing power of these payments. However, there's a significant catch when it comes to the health element of universal credit, and this is where things get really concerning for people with disabilities and health conditions. Currently, if you're unable to work due to illness or disability, you can receive what's called the Limited Capability for Work and Work-Related Activity element, which is worth £97 per week. But here's the crucial change: for new claims from April 2026, this rate will be reduced by £47 per week, dropping from £97 per week to just £50 per week. This represents a massive cut of almost half the current amount, and it will be frozen at this lower rate until 2029-30. You might be wondering, does this affect people who are already receiving this element? The government has said that existing claimants will be protected from these cuts, but what does this actually mean in practice? If you're currently receiving the health element of universal credit, you should continue to receive the current rate. However, if you're thinking about claiming universal credit in the future, or if your circumstances change and you need to make a new claim after April 2026, you would be subject to this significantly reduced rate. The government has tried to justify these changes by arguing that the current system encourages sickness by paying health element recipients more than double the standard allowance. They claim that reducing this element will help rebalance the system and encourage more people back into work. But disability rights groups and charities have expressed serious concerns about these proposals, arguing that they could leave some of the most vulnerable people in society with inadequate support. There are some exceptions to these changes that are worth understanding. The government has said that 200,000 individuals in what they call the severe conditions criteria group, those with the most severe, lifelong conditions, will receive additional protection. These individuals will continue to receive higher levels of support, but the details of exactly how this will work and who will qualify remain unclear. One thing that's particularly important to understand is the timeline of these changes. The bill is currently making its way through Parliament, And while it hasn't become law yet, the government seems determined to push it through. The changes to PIP eligibility would apply to new claims from November 2026, while the Universal Credit Health Element changes would come into effect from April 2026. This gives people some time to understand the implications and potentially take action if their circumstances might be affected. But here's something that many people don't realize: even if you're currently receiving these benefits, your situation could change in the future. Life circumstances can alter dramatically due to illness, injury, or changing health conditions. And if you found yourself needing to make a new claim after these changes come into effect, you could be subject to the new, more restrictive rules. This uncertainty is causing significant anxiety among people who rely on these benefits, and it's completely understandable why. The government has also announced that there will be a review of the PIP system, which is set to finish in autumn 2026. This review will determine whether further changes are needed, but the fact that this review is happening at the same time as these other changes are being implemented has led to criticism that the government is rushing through reforms without properly understanding their impact. So what can you do if you're concerned about these changes? First, it's important to stay informed about the progress of this bill through Parliament. The legislation could still be amended as it goes through the parliamentary process, and there's always the possibility that some of the more controversial proposals could be scaled back or removed entirely. Second, if you're currently receiving PIP or the health element of universal credit, make sure you understand your rights and protections as an existing claimant. If you're thinking about applying for these benefits but haven't done so yet, you might want to consider whether it would be beneficial to make your claim before the changes come into effect. However, this is a complex decision that depends on your individual circumstances, and you should seek proper advice before making any decisions about benefit claims. The reality is that these changes represent a significant shift in the government's approach to disability and health-related benefits. While the government argues that these reforms are necessary to make the system more sustainable and to encourage people back into work, critics argue that they could leave some of the most vulnerable people in society without adequate support. The debate around these changes is likely to continue as the bill makes its way through Parliament, and it's crucial that everyone who could be affected stays informed about what's happening and what it might mean for their financial security. Remember, this is a developing situation, and the details of these changes could still be modified as the legislation progresses through Parliament. Make sure you are subscribed to our channel for the latest updates on this story and other important benefit changes that could affect you. Your financial security depends on staying informed, and we're here to help you understand these complex changes and what they might mean for your future.